a middle to perhaps top 4 contender. And we're on into the draft. So, what have we seen traditionally? Well, Varus bans, Syndra bans, Yuumi bans. Sometimes we see an Aphelios get removed as well. Trundle, a very strong jungler right now, will be taken away by G2.
We may see a set ban towards Trick. We did talk about how it is something that he is very comfortable on, and if G2 just want to take him off some of his comforts, that might be the direction that they go for it. In terms of SK Gaming, as you rightly said, Varus, Syndra is very much what I'm expecting. We've seen no Graves bans today, Medic, and typically that was the final Rek'Sai ban, but I feel like going up against G2, maybe you want to take away something like a Twisted Fate. Maybe you don't want to allow him to play one of those champions that does so easily roam around the map, especially after Caps' great performance on it last week.
Yeah, it definitely makes sense to me, you know, get rid of some of the ability for Caps to influence those other lanes. Set is taken away from Trick, and there's the Ezreal ban away from Crownshot as well.
Yeah, very specific target ban. Crownshot had a great performance on the Ezreal last week against XL. He was kind of like the shining star that kept SK in that game, so G2 showcasing that respect. SK, they are going to remove the Twisted Fate, so they don't want to allow Caps to have that lock-in, which does mean that the Kalista is up and available, which is usually the direction that G2 Esports go when it comes to locking in champions, and we know that Aphelios, Kalista are very high priority list champions, but when G2 have the option to be more aggressive in lane, they usually take that option.
Yeah, when you can put someone who's as mechanically gifted as Perkz onto something like the Kalista, you can have such a devastating influence from that bottom side of the map. Now, expectation here is that SK get themselves a safe AD carry, perhaps a support to team up with it, and there it is, Aphelios Thresh locked in for SK.
Yeah, so they're just going to take the Thresh away from G2's bot lane. I think that makes a lot of sense. I also think that the Thresh-Aphelios combo can also be very strong in its own right. I think that even though Aphelios can be considered quite weak during the early laning phase, depending on what gun setup you have, and depending on what jungler you're matched up with as well, you have a lot of room to make plays around the bot side of the map. So we'll see how much Trick looks to invest towards Crownshot and Limit. Moving back over to G2 Esports, they're going to lock in their early Rek'Sai. Only, well, I say only. We have seen the Trundle being removed. We've also seen the set being removed. Excuse me, but things like Lee Sin are still up and available. Rek'Sai considered quite good into that matchup, so that's probably why they're quite comfortable with it. Olaf is another one to think about. Of course, SK could just lock in their mid laners. Zoe, Azir, Orianna, all the big, Syndra's obviously removed, but some of the big power pick mid laners, and we know that ZaZee is a big Azir player as well, so that might just be the direction that he goes in right now.
I think Azir would be a very good pick for him. He had a pretty good performance on it last week, and it will be locked in. So good prediction there, Vedius. The Azir is the lock, and there's the Zoe getting taken away from Caps, removing one of those picks where he's had so much impact across the map.
So we're seeing SK showcase a lot of respect toward Caps in the mid lane. He's lost quite a few mid lane champions so far during this draft phase, and I think it just goes to show how talented he still is in that role, even after a split on AD carry. We're now looking at the remaining bans. G2 actually putting a bit of focus up towards, well, technically jungle and top with the flexibility that we've already seen from Volibear today. And I'm curious as to what direction they now go in, because there's a lot left to be desired. They could take away more junglers. Oh no, they're saying, okay, whatever jungler is left, we're actually quite happy to play into it. We're actually just going to remove Ornn because we think it's something that Jenax is quite comfortable on, and it pretty much fits into the Azir, Aphelios team fighting meta.
I think the Volibear especially was something that Jenax played really well last week, so not surprised to see that banned away. We haven't talked too much about the fact that Gragas is still available, but he's kind of that A-tier jungler, beneath the power picks of the Trundles, of the Graves, of the sets, and it will be locked in here for Trick. He has, of course, played it a huge amount of times in the past, very proficient at the champion, but we'll see if he can take his current set performances over onto the Gragas.
I think right now, the bot lane combo of Kalista, Nautilus plus Rek'Sai specifically being on blue side gives G2 a lot of options, which is why they're very comfortable playing into whatever jungler SK decide to go for. As you rightly said, did he just blind pick Kassadin?
Well, no, because Azir's locked.
Oh, yeah.
So
sorry,
he's picking Kassadin into Azir, but still, that's not a matchup I'd love. And also, doesn't roam too well, which is kind of the story we've set up.
Well, at 6 he does.
Yes, but before 6.
Yeah, he's forced to stay in his lane. You're right. let's see what else they lock in before we make our speculations, because one of the scary things about G2 is that they do love to flex, and as we say that, Akali gets locked in. There is the ability for G2 to move the Kassadin to the top lane if they wanted to. Yeah. We've seen Akali be used as an answer to Azir. I think it was Misfits that also brought it. Febiven played it mid as well. So let's have a look at what SK finally lock in for their last pick. See what direction both these compositions go.
Renekton it will be for the final pick here for Jenax, trying to find things perhaps that work well into the Akali and into the Kassadin in the lane. Of course, Kassadin, a lot of magic resist in his kit passively, so he'll want to lane into someone who does magic damage. And Akali, well, she has an okay laning phase versus the Renekton, can struggle early doors. And we'll see if that Kassadin is flexed around. For now, it looks like Caps is going to be taking it. I will tell you, I'm fervently trying to find out from our stats when the last time Kassadin was played by G2 was.
Yeah, and I'm excited. I think both these drafts are pretty interesting. When we get into the game, we'll talk a little bit more about them, but we're going to get to see Caps on a strong side lane powerhouse. We're going to get to see ZaZee playing a comfort pick in the form of Azir. I think the SK have taken a sensible approach in that they're playing what they know. This is comfort for them. Let's see how they stack up against the likes of the G2 Esports that in their wheelhouse is also playing comfort.
And storming onto Summoner's Rift we go for the third game of the day of week 3, day 1. And Vedius, I want to talk about Kassadin.
Let's do it.
I want to talk about it because I am surprised by this pick. I did find out the last time Caps has played it, the only time he's played it in his history was 2018 spring when he was on Fnatic and they won. So he does have a 100% win rate on the champ.
Back when he was a baby faker all those years ago. Yeah, let's talk about Kassadin. So what's interesting about the champion is he's one of the best scaling champions in the game. He is famous for his level 16 because his ultimate gets a 2-second cooldown base. Yep. When you add more CDR on top of that, you know, it's really short. Which means that he has an insane amount of mobility, but also an insane amount of damage. Because the more you stack up that ultimate, the more damage that it ultimately does. It does cost more mana as well, but you can kind of remedy that depending on how you play. Now, what is interesting about Kassadin to Azir is that during the laning phase, this matchup is very difficult. I want to draw your attention to the rune choice that he is gone for. The fleet footwork, very common on many Kassadins that you'll see, especially into tough matchups, because it helps give you a little bit of sustain. Now, the thing is, the great thing about Kassadin is, even when he hits level 6 and he has that extra bit of mobility, he's not going to trade that well. You can already see it in the laning phase. He tries the last hit, he gets poked in the face. The scary thing for champions like Azir, though, is it's very difficult for him to keep Azir at, or Kassadin at arm's length. One of the greatest strengths of control mages is that normally they want to play at a mid to long range distance. They do not want to be in front of your face, right? Okay. So what Kassadin is great at, especially against mages in general, is number one, he does have that magic damage shield that he gets from his Q, but also he's very good at getting on top of your face, and he's good at getting, closing the gap, making sure that he can dish out a huge amount of burst damage, and that damage comes very quickly, and there's very little that many mages can do about it. And even with Azir's disengage tool in the form of his ultimate, it's not going to be enough to stop you once Kassadin gets those items and also gets a couple of levels under his belt. This is why it's usually very important that when playing against a Kassadin, you want to try and bully him as much as possible during the early laning phase. You want to take advantage of the fact that you typically can't get priority in that lane. You can already see a bit of vision coming out from the side of SK because they can move into the enemy side of the jungle and gain river control much easier in the early game because of how little wave clear he does have.
Betty, you talked about blue side Rek'Sai and how easy it is to gank bot lane. Trick is here in time, but Jankos could try and get across that wall. Mikyx engaging in the bottom lane. His limit has to flash away. The hook's going to go wide there, and Mikyx is able to walk away from this fight. Jankos wasn't able to join in the Barney in the bottom lane because Trick kept him at bay.
Yeah, really good pathing there from Trick, recognizing that blue side Rek'Sai can be very oppressive. Your ability to, and I'm going to show you guys on the minimap here, what you can do on a blue side Rek'Sai is come in over the wall,
So
from Dragon Pit?
I can see you drawing ready, but we can't see it on the thing at the moment.
My drawing isn't working. Damn technology. So in any case, you can come in from over the Dragon Pit wall, or you can come in through the river, and you can sneak in behind where the Tribush is behind the tower, and you can then come in through that very long wall and set up a gank. It was something that Mikyx actually came onto the analyst desk and talked to us about last split, where it's basically like, it's something you always have to be afraid of when playing against a blue side Rek'Sai, and how difficult it can be for many bot laners. So that's what we saw Mikyx and Perkz allow the push to happen and set up that play. But as you mentioned, Trick there for the counter gank stops that play. Only a flash is lost for them.
It is mirrored if you play red side Rek'Sai. You look for the top lane ganks, because you can get in behind that lane pretty easily. Jankos going to come in here and sneak away the Scuttle Crab with a smite of his own. And Trick will be a little dismayed that he lost out on that early on. So let's have a look in terms of where we are for the laning phase. Pretty even down towards the bottom side. You can see Perkz has actually already got to back off. He's reset. Crownshot still collecting the wave at the tower, so he'll be going back relatively soon. Mid lane is more even than I thought it would be, Vedius. There's only a 4 CS difference there. Caps has burnt his potions, and, you know, he's a little bit chunked out, but he's doing fine in terms of CS.
Yeah. Props to him. I think that Azir, not one of the best champions actually punishing Kassadin in the early game, because a lot of it is just short poke. You can't really commit to an all-in and really threaten a kill onto a Kassadin during early laning phase. And I think that Caps is also showcasing how proficient he is on the champion, taking advantage of that fleet footwork to stay healthy, but also the W from Kassadin makes it very easy to farm underneath your tower as well. So he's going to go base now, reset, TP back into lane, and at this point, this is where the lane becomes a lot easier for the Kassadin, because he's going to get that level 6 soon. You can see that he's going for the early tier. Surprised? Is he going to grab any pots? Okay. I am surprised he didn't grab any pots.
Don't need potions where we're going, Vedius.
All right, well, we will be keeping track of whether or not Caps does look to roam medic. We've been talking a lot about Caps' tendency to roam throughout the day. He usually spends very little time in lane, and let's see where he makes, where he looks for any opportunity.
I mean, we've built it up as the way that G2 drafts overall. This was pretty bad from Limit. Stayed around a little bit too long. The Sentinel caught him out, but they can't quite get the kill as he just about survives. I believe the shield from the Lantern came down after he was hit by the final bit of damage. So
that was luck. I mean, he may have also had a health pot, which I wasn't entirely sure of, but he survived with a slither of health medic, so he just barely gets away with his life there. G2 consistently looking to try and punish the flashless Limit. Again, G2 trying to get this bot lane ahead, very common for a Kalista and a Nautilus. It's such a strong lane that you want to play around. And I think SK is doing a good job of surviving that lane for the time being. You can see Crownshot even in CS. And so far, neither of them have died. This is even going to give SK the opportunity to get themselves an early Drake.
This is something that Trick's actually been really good at, is working with Limit to set up around these objectives. Usually they are there a few seconds before they spawn, they get the vision control, and then they're able to play for it. And we'll see as the game develops from here if they move their bot lane up towards the top side, because that is what I've seen them do over the last few games.
I think this might be a little early, just because it's a 6:30 Drake. They may look to take one wave and then on the next reset, that's when I think that they may look to do it. But I also want to note that we're also seeing from SK what you should be doing against the Kassadin again, because he can't gain early priority in the laning phase, and Azir is very good at doing that. So the fact that mid laner can't roam into the river means that it's a pretty much uncontested Drake. The only way in which G2 could have gotten that is if they found a kill onto Limit. They had that pressure in the 2v2 bot, which we've seen SK manage to fight off for the time being. And they do have a small gold advantage.
About 400 gold or so.
Largely coming off the back of Trick with securing a bit more farm than what Jankos is able to get.
A slight CS in the bottom lane is giving Crowny a slight advantage as well, about 200 gold ahead. And as you say, this is kind of the point where I'd expect to see SK looking for that recall and going for the swap. It looks to me like they've decided they want to at least get another wave pushed in the bottom lane. Jankos trying to invade here onto Trick, gets in, the smite goes down, but I think Trick secured that, hits level 6, has the cask if he wants to knock Jankos away, and Jankos will just make him pay for the red buff with a little bit more HP than he would have liked.
Impressive stuff there from Trick to be able to secure that smite when I don't think he was expecting Jankos to show up as well.
Can we talk about that CS difference in the jungle, though? Because that's quite large for this portion of the game. And Rek'Sai is a relatively good jungle farmer as well. Like, is this just developed from Jankos trying to get these invades off more, trying to get more ganks
So
off?
I wasn't able to watch exactly Jankos' pathing in the early game, but I would imagine a lot of it came from the fact that he had repeated ganks in the bot side of the map. And I'm curious as to what the scuttle control also looked like, because again, you come back to this Kassadin thing, contesting for scuttles in the river naturally becomes harder because you don't have a mid lane. The Kassadin really can't contribute much, so that may be another reason, and Trick just may have secured himself a lot of scuttles. But again, I wasn't quite able to track it in the early game.
I realized I asked you to have a look at it, and then I hadn't seen it either. We're looking at the same screen. So it's slightly unfair of me there, Vedius. I apologize, but we'll see if that continues to develop as the game goes on. The SK bottom lane is staying down there for the moment. They have that BF sword complete now, so this Aphelios is getting towards, you know, that first item power. Maybe even looking for this plate, because it's actually G2 who have decided they want to take their bot lane out of here and get them up towards that Rift Tower.
I think it's important to remember that G2's late game is Kassadin and Akali on a side lane.
Okay.
No one on SK can match those two champions. Even a Renekton, you will be able to itemize some magic resistance and you will be able to probably hold one of the two.
Yeah.
But the fact that there are two split pushes that can split up the map, SK won't be able to deal with both of them. However, at around 2 items, I think that there is room for SK to actually force a lot of fights in their favor. Aphelios with the Infinity Edge plus the Runans. I think at that point in the game, things like Drakes, things like team fights, maybe even a Baron, if you force this Kassadin to group, force the Akali to group, I think the SK then have options because of their strong scaling, into their strong team fighting, because you have Azir plus Aphelios, you have a pretty solid front line, you have pretty decent disengage. Like, there are a lot of tools that SK can actually use to 5v5. Which means that if they can keep things going with the current way that the laning phase is, they're actually feeling pretty happy because this Kalista isn't snowballing out of control. Yeah. Kassadin doesn't have a bunch of kills and he's not propelling his itemization. Akali hasn't quite hit the gunblade yet, so we're seeing G2 kind of forced to swap and be more proactive because they want to try and get these item spikes a little bit sooner so that they're not sitting at an even point with SK once you hit those mid-game points.
I think that's a really interesting dynamic to see, because whenever you think of Kassadin, like, traditionally, as you say, and Twitch chat always says, it's like, how many levels till he's level 16, right? And it's like, oh, it's 7 levels, okay? We just have to wait for the 7 levels to pass, and that's when G2 really come online. But they still have to be in the position to actually utilize the power of a level 16 Kassadin, and that's what Mikyx trying to get for them now as he looks for the gank on ZaZee, but ZaZee just shuffles away.
One of the common pitfalls that teams fall into with Kassadin is that because you have no control over mid, you can actually lose a lot of control in the early game.
Yeah.
The way in which you counter this is by having strong side laners, which by going for the Akali, it gave them a bit more flexibility where they could actually put that Akali, and I think they got a pretty solid matchup going into the Renekton, and you can see that Wunder's done very well in that lane. And they also had Kalista and Nautilus, so kind of the G2 power lanes came from their sides, and they tried very hard to play through these sides, and now they're trying to get a little bit more gold into their back pocket. I do debate if this Rift Tower would have had more value being used in the mid lane, trying to break that tower against the Azir.
Out of there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Moving the Kassadin out, putting the Rift Tower onto a tower that Azir is defending, who's typically a champion that is difficult to break. And we look at the siege from G2, it's pretty weak.
Oh, Mickey flashes forward. Trick just about able to flash away there. That was a split-second decision from Trick.
But you can see that G2's trying to be proactive. They're looking for these picks. They want to try and get this Kalista ahead if they see an opportunity. And I don't think it's that there's like on a timer, but I do think that there are things that could make this game very difficult for them. And the fact that short-range composition, they're kind of reliant on Baron to win. They need their side laners to be strong to actually threaten the side lanes. So I think there are a couple of conditions that make this game pretty interesting.
I was really interested about that Rift Tower play, because as you say, you can use it mid, but my expectation was G2 were using it bot to get bot prio so they could then come for this dragon. But as soon as they took the tower, they just back away. And the good thing for SK here is getting this dragon keeps that soul ticking over, right? You're getting closer and closer to that soul. You can force G2 out of the 1-3-1 they're expected to go into the team fights, which is where SK's composition is the best.
And I think we actually got to see a bit of this when Mad played against Fnatic, and Fnatic had a composition that they could use on a side lane, but then the Dragon Soul came around, they were like,
we have to
fight all these times, and in a situation where they probably wanted to actually play on the side lanes, they couldn't. So we'll see if SK actually make that happen. G2 a little paranoid about what SK is setting up here. Yeah, I mean, good respect. And again, I want to give praise to SK. They haven't lost any members within the first 30 minutes of the game. G2 has been very proactive on the bot side of the map, and this is a good trade for Crownshot.
Moonlight Vigil's going to come out. I don't think it's going to be enough damage. Crownshot unable to kill off Perkz, but Crownshot showing why he has been feared across the course of this tournament. Mickey's going to go in, lands the death charge as well, but the turnaround is there. Fate's Call will pull Mickey out. Trick was coming in from the side, and SK are still looking for their first tower of the game.
Die here.
Jenax could die, has the slice and dice, flashes away from the knockup. Wunder was going in the opposite direction there, but he can still go in with the perfect execution. Jenax surviving for a long time. Wunder almost goes down to the turret. Jankos, one more shot would be enough, but he can't quite take it, and that is a good dive in the top lane, but meanwhile SK continue to force in bot.
So props to Crownshot by chunking out Perkz. It made it much easier for SK to play towards that bot tower. Mikyx nearly 2v1s Limit and Crownshot. And he came very close to securing that kill. I think if he'd executed it slightly differently, turned his attention more onto Limit rather than Crownshot, he actually would have at least gotten one kill. But in any case, the problem was his jungler is topside, so Mikyx and Perkz can't hold that. Crownshot and Limit help secure themselves a tower in the bot side of the map, and then conversely on the other side, Jankos and Wunder secure a kill onto Jenax, which in the grand scheme of things doesn't mean a huge amount. SK aren't massively behind. The big thing is that Wunder, now with his Gunblade completed, is working towards those next 4 itemizations. And
you want that Akali to be as strong as possible, but I have noticed a trend from SK across the last few weeks and across the course of this game. Observers, if you can switch over to the gold, have a look at how much gold has been invested into this Aphelios. He is at 6,300 gold right now, 1,200 gold ahead, and SK know that Crownshot is playing the best out of all of them right now. They continue to invest resources in him, and I'm actually really excited to see how Crownshot can utilize this advantage he has in later game teamfights.
Yeah, I'm really excited because I think this game could go in a number of different directions.
Yeah, and imagine saying that about a G2 SK game before the start of this split, right? Sure. This would be expected G2 20 minutes, let's go, but SK have really risen to the challenge.
And we talked a lot about Crownshot last week. Quickshow and I, when we cast that game against XL, it was Crownshot that was holding the line and just almost kept the game alive and almost made the game turn around. And he really has been a standout performer for this SK squad. And as you highlighted, Menik, by investing more resources into him, by leveling up, by putting him on a pedestal, we're getting to see what he can do. There's still the rest of this game to go.
Oh, 100%.
We'll see what he can do. There's a lot of dive threats on G2 that kind of want to get in his face and close that gap. And it's going to be interesting to see how SK use their disengage to keep Crownshot alive. Can they keep him alive when there is so much threat?
G2 are looking for an engage in the mid lane as Wunder steps forward onto Limit. Caps had a flank position, but a great hook from Limit is going to pull him back into the box, and now Wunder, he just gets shuffled on. Crownshot gets his first kill of the game, SK get theirs, and they're looking for this mid lane tower.
Beautiful hook from Limit sets up the play for SK, and Crownshot gets his first kill of the game. They're going to secure that mid-tier 1 as well. SK suddenly swinging the gold in their favor.
1,200 gold advantage for them. They put down the Sun Disc in the mid lane. There is a Rift Herald for them if they want it, but instead they decide to reset, recall, and recuperate some of this gold lead that they have.
Wow, SK. I love how they're playing the map right now. I think that the fact that they've been able to mitigate all of the early attacks that G2 is throwing towards the bot side of the map, the fact that they've been able to find a pick and punish G2 for these very small mistakes. I feel like the way in which they played around the Kassadin in the earlier game was good. Of course, we're still looking at this G2 composition and saying it's going to keep ramping up.
Yep.
It's good, regardless of how strong that Akali and Kassadin is, it will get to a point where you cannot kill them on a side lane. They're going to have so much mobility, so much damage and backline threat that it's going to be problematic. But right now, SK have 2 Drakes. They have the 2-item spike on Crownshot. He is incredibly strong, and I feel like G2 don't want to fight right now.
Yeah.
I think it would be very risky for them to do that because you're at the risk of ballooning this goal lead for SK, and that could mean a 3rd Drake, which then sets you up for the Ocean Drake, which then gives them the team fights that they're looking for. So I think SK have done a fantastic job of mitigating what G2 want to do in this early game.
And what I love about it is you have to think about G2's decision-making right now. The argument is, do we want to fight now? If no, we have to fight in 5 minutes time. We have to fight, in 6 minutes time for the next dragon. We have to take that because otherwise we're giving up a soul. And as much as Kassadin and Akali will be strong in a side lane, a lot of their strength is mitigated when the enemy is healing just as much damage as you're doing because they have the Ocean Soul. So this dragon has been started up. Jankos is trying to get his way in, but he was spotted on a ward that's been put down by Limit just a while ago. Caps sitting on a ward here as well. The dragon will get secured, and Caps is trying to shift his way out of there, just about escapes. SK with their 3rd dragon of the game, 17 minutes in. They have 1,000 gold lead, and they are looking really darn strong.
So while it has been a slow game, Eddie, I feel like it's getting more and more tense.
I'm loving it,
We
man.
can feel that things are starting to get a little scary for G2, but at the same time, you're like, the game's definitely not over. So you're very curious as to how this game will pan out. So let's kind of have a quick look at the match state, because we can see that the Rift Herald is alive. this is an option that both teams could look to play for. I actually think that neither of them will. If any team is going to go for it, it is SK. For the time being, G2 is just going to focus on picking up farm and securing these side lanes. So we can see some itemization starting to be completed on their end. Blade of the Ruin King is now finished for Perkz. The Gunblade, as we mentioned before, and the Zhonya starting to come through for Wunder as well. But this Aphelios is only getting stronger and stronger. The Nash's Tooth is now also ready for ZaZee. Things are getting very tense right now, man.
They definitely are. Rift Herald has been started up here by SK as well, looking for their fourth neutral objective of the game. As we have a moment of downtime here, Vedius, I will say, I researched these teams before. Oh, they're not going to fight. I researched these teams before this game, and I was like, oh, I'm really excited to cast them, because we have the second and third most bloody teams in the entire league.
Wow.
SK are the third most bloody, G2 are the second most bloody, get most of their kills. And we're currently at 19 minutes. We've had 2 kills in this game. So it's been a little bit slower than I expected, but Perkz is flashing in. Mikyx tries to get in there with a face corner. Mikyx, that was a one-way ticket to hell as he dies trying to get a catch onto SK. Rift Herald was used here in the mid lane as well.
G2 is playing very aggressive right now. We saw that solo play from Wunder in the mid lane where he tried to make a pick. See the flash on the mid. Lands a hook.
Okay. Wunder was under tower and had the shroud.
But it's going to force him back. G2, they're being pushed back by SK right now. The way in which SK are punishing these small mistakes is just netting them further and further advantages. 1.5k gold lead. It is very small, but SK don't really need to do a lot. They're just waiting for that next dragon to spawn. They're making sure that their itemization is coming in on point, and that's when I think we'll start to see the blood be shed, as we have a bit of a one-on-one in the bot lane.
Perfect execution coming in. It's not going to be a one-on-one for long, because here comes Jankos, and there goes Jenax. The butt of the kills for SK. He's died twice. Both those kills have gone over to the Rek'Sai. Perhaps not the key target, but I will note, Jankos has said, screw building a Black Cleaver, I'm going lethality this game.
Looks like, yeah, I think he's going to grab himself the Edge of Night is the direction I think he's heading right now. Anyway, flash hook from Mikyx. This man has been super aggressive this game, and he has constantly been looking for plays. Trading flash from ZaZee is definitely worth it for Mikyx, but then this is the play where I bring into question. You can see that SK is a little split up here, and I think that the goal is to try and go for the direction that Trick is actually hovering in on the top side, but then they pivot. Mikyx gets thrown underneath the tower. Whether that's his choice or Perkz' choice, we still don't know right now. But either way, it does not go in their favor, and SK find themselves a kill and another tower.
And it highlights why Thresh is such a power pick in the current meta, because the safety he gives to Crownshot there when Crownshot was on the wrong side of that fight, right? Like, he was trying to back off towards the top side, didn't have to burn flash, didn't have to burn heal, limit was there, and is actually having a very strong performance so far this game, in my opinion. Very strong split all round. Of course, after this, we do have Mad Lions taking on Origin. A battle for redemption for Origin in some ways.
It's going to be a really interesting game for sure. You guys are definitely going to want to stick around. But this game isn't over yet, and we're getting closer, Medic, to that 4th Ocean Drake. G2 have to fight it. They can't afford not to. So let's have a look at, again, some of these items. Zonya's now done for Akali. We can see that the... limits. He's looking for it.
Mikyx, remember, he doesn't have flash. Doesn't have a way to get out of this, but instead he will just get himself back to safety. Jankos has a flank position here as well, but
it's on this control ward. They know.
They know he's there. They know he's there. You might have Edge of Night, but they're not going to be able to find him. Cap's going to jump in now. Crownshot and Limit on the wrong side of this, but Crownshot still has the flash. Limit's going to get locked up, and he's already down. And now the fight really begins. Cap's able to get away, but the explosive cast will take down Perkz. And Wunder tried to get into the fight, but Crownshot is still alive, and Jenax now able to teleport in and get on the backline. It's a double for ZaZee. It's a kill for Jenax, and it is a team fight wipe for SK.
And it's G2 that tried to force the team fight in the mid lane. They think that they've caught Crownshot out, but it is SK that turn it back around. They hold the line underneath their tower. They just barely keep Crownshot alive. And for now, they're saying, well, the Drake's not even alive yet. They're just going to grab themselves a 22-minute Baron against G2 Esports.
And a 4,000 gold lead, Vedius. The Ocean Drake is very real possibility. Remember, Wunder doesn't have teleport. Caps has his. ZaZee's going to face check straight into Jankos here, who's trying to take him down, but he can just shuffle away. The Void Rush will come in, but that means Jankos is stuck underneath the tower. You could see Jenax trying to get the Edge of Night shield away before he could use the Ruthless Predator, but isn't able to stun Jankos underneath the tower. And now the rest of SK are on their way. They're looking to fight this. Perhaps a little greedy from them. They could just back away.
It is a major damage dealer that is dead. ZaZee does have teleport. Crownshot, he did have an opportunity to reset, so he's pretty strong. But SK can also just take the fact that, you know what, we're still at 3 Drakes. Yeah. We can wait for the next one. We've got ourselves a Baron. Let's not overcommit. let's watch this play back. And again, I want to keep your eyes on Crownshot and Limit specifically and what he's doing. Because as Limit is trying to set up this engage, trying to punish the flash to this Mikyx, notice how he's always standing in front of Crownshot and acting as that peel. He's staying relatively close. They realize they're in a bad spot. Crownshot is forced to flash. And this is where Limit's like, I've got to body block all of this. Goes for the hook onto Nautilus to try and protect him. And this is where the wall comes out from ZaZee as Akali dives in. Crownshot just barely surviving.
So close.
With so little HP, the protection was just so good from SK that G2, even with all their mobility, even with all their dive, they couldn't compete against the tower. They could not get that kill, and they end up losing a Baron.
And it's going to become even harder to assassinate Crownshot because he's now got Death's Dance, and he's going to have that extra lifesteal, have that extra damage reduction. ZaZee's going to shuffle away here in the mid lane, but perhaps he's gone a little bit too far, puts up the Emperor's Divide, tries to take down Wunder, but can't get the damage down. Trick coming in from the side as well. He's on the chase with the Predator, but I don't think the rest of SK are here to do too much about this. Wave was caught in the mid lane to stop that from advancing, but Crownshot and Limit are by themselves in the top. Caps thought that hook might connect. Limit instead will just take the minion train to Towersville. And this will be the 5th turret of the game for SK.
Ooh. Well, I've been nothing but impressed with SK. And, you know, one of our questions that we had at the beginning of this game, Medic, was where does SK fall in the league?
This was their defining game, right? If they challenged G2, we thought, well, perhaps they're a playoffs contender.
I mean, because think about it. They've taken down OG already. Yep. And if they now take down G2, we have to ask the question, maybe G2 is just easy to beat, or maybe SK is really up there and they're competing with the rest of them. Maybe they are a playoffs contender. And yes, this team still is difficult to measure because they did just last week lose to XL. Yeah. And it's just adding a lot more questions to our league. What does G2 look like? You know, they weren't able to make a lot of these ganks happen, but how much credit do you give to SK? I feel like they mitigated a lot of that. I think Trick's early pathing was good. He read what the play was, and he stopped them. We've seen a lot of greedy plays from G2, where Wunder tried to force that pick in the mid lane, did not pay off. SK aptly punish it, and I think that SK haven't needed to go above and beyond, but they also have not done anything wrong that G2 have been able to exploit.
That's the thing. They haven't made those major mistakes that G2 always pounced on. Yeah. Right? And
it's the inverse that's happening.
Exactly, right, yeah. Whenever G2 try and force something, SK are there and they're ready to pick up on those mistakes. And I do want to give credit to the bot lane of SK specifically, because I think Limit has had an incredible game with this hook.
Certainly has.
And Crownshot has done well, as we expect him to, but against perhaps a higher caliber of opponent than he's played in games past.
Yeah, and so now we'll see if SK can close things out, because that's the crucial thing. Yeah. Being able to win against G2 is something that not many teams have been able to do. And with the next Drake spawning, you know that G2 is going to look to fight it. Again, that Ocean Soul is going to be very problematic for them. SK in a good position, though. They're just controlling mid and bot wave. They've kind of abandoned top. They are going to send Jenax up there because they know his TP will be returning soon.
We'll see how SK are able to play out the next few minutes. Because we talked about it earlier on, I will just reiterate for everyone at home. G2, you can see them doing it right now. 1-3-1. Akali up in top lane, 3 people around mid, and then Caps on this Kassadin down towards the bottom lane. That is how they thrive, and it will be difficult for SK to match that 1-3-1. However, SK have a very strong team fighting composition, and with a Dragon being up in a minute's time, with a Baron being up in a minute 30, we expect SK to try and set up their vision around it and then pull G2 into these full 5-on-5 team fights.
Precisely, Medic. And I feel like this next fight that's bound to happen is going to decide a lot. Can G2 find a pick before the fight happens? Can SK properly set up the river? Because right now they have good vision around mid. They need to extend that through the bot. You can see, as our observers highlighted, the G2 have very little vision of the river right now, but they're not too afraid. Dragon is not spawning for another 45 seconds. Limit looking for those hooks, see if he can find a pick for the team. Trick now pathing towards bot side of the map. I like that we're seeing Caps try and push out that wave bot. This gives G2 an opportunity to make their way in through the bot side of the river. SK now looking to answer.
You can see Limit. On the Ocean Rift, there are so many more bushes that you have to take control of. He's getting as many wards in as he can, even using the control ward outside of the pit in that bush to make sure that G2 cannot get their own vision control over it. But G2 have set up this concave down towards the bottom side of this fight. Caps continually pushing in that bottom wave, keeping the pressure up there. Jankos, Wunder, and Mikyx teaming up to try and corral SK into a bad situation. And perhaps, oh, Caps, he already, oh no, he doesn't even get across the wall. Caps still has the flash, he goes golden, but he's just going to tick away. Jenax flashes the wall, the chase is on, and Trick is here to take it down. Caps, and that could be the biggest misplay of them all. Vedius G2 have made mistakes this game, but SK once again pounced. They strike and they're looking for the Ocean Dragon. Jankos does have a tunnel network to try and get in, but that's already been taken away, and now the Dragon's going to get pulled out of the pit, pulled away from Jankos. He has Flash, he has Smite. Is he going to go for it? He's looking, but he can't get in. Wunder jumps in, but the Smite is secured by SK. And now, 28 minutes in, they have a 3,000 gold lead, they have an Ocean Soul, and they have a direct path to the Baron while Caps is still dead.
And it's Jenax that finds that pick, crucially catching Caps out as he tries to threaten a side lane. And very rarely do we ever see Caps get caught out in a side, but SK do it beautifully. Off the back of that pick, they secure themselves the Ocean Soul. They're going to get themselves the Baron buff as well. SK in a prime position to take down G2.
What a performance has been by them. As you say, they haven't done anything spectacular, but everything they have done has made perfect sense. And they've made the right calls at the right times.
Jenax just utilizing Fog of War. He's expecting Caps to come in here and just keep clearing that wave with his ultimate. And this is the perfect time to strike. Jenax's burst was just so much with the Blade of the Ruin King as well. Trick was needed to clean up that kill, but with Caps gone and with the remainder of SK holding the line around Dragon, there was no way for G2 to sneak it away, and SK walk away the victors.
We are coming up to the 30% mark of the split, playing 6 games. And to get into that point at 4-2 would be a mighty achievement for SK.
I'm trying to think if, I mean, this version of G2, I don't think has ever been 3-3.
No, I don't think so.
But like, also, yeah, this is very surprising. You know, a lot of questions have to be brought up around G2's performance. I think they have been over-aggressive, but props to SK for the consistent punishments that we've seen. Everyone seems to be on the same page right now. They're looking to siege into the base, and G2, they don't have the wave clear tool, so they're going to force a fight.
Flanking TP is coming in. Jenax is going to join up with his team, and it's Caps trying to get on towards the backside, trying to get on towards Crownshot if he can. The play comes out from Limit, but Jenax is just going to chase away Caps, and the TP was for naught. It did force SK back for a second, but Caps once again jumping in. The inhibitor tower has gone down. Caps is doing a lot of damage here. Jenax going to pop the Dominus, trying to survive, and here comes Jankos as well, but Caps is going to get forced away. The shuffle comes in from ZaZee as G2 are getting swept away in the top lane. Wunder low has to pop the stopwatch, but Perkz just can't get the damage in. He's putting spear after spear into Limit, but each spear does a minuscule amount of damage, and this is it. SK sweep G2 away. G2 could find no answer for SK's teamfight and could find no answer for SK's map play. And SK will take down the current reigning champions of Europe in an impeccable performance.